In our headlines on this Wednesday, December 11th, here in South Korea, a second impeachment motion against President Yoon will be put up for a vote at the Parliament this coming Saturday as lawmakers across the aisle continue to lock horns over the political and legal fate of the president for declaring martial law. And authorities have made their first arrest over last Tuesday's martial law declaration, with former Defense Minister Kim Yong-hyun formally charged for colluding with the president as investigators seek to determine whether their acts amount to rebellion. Meanwhile, late Tuesday afternoon in Sweden, Kang became the first South Korean writer and the first Asian female writer to win a Nobel Prize for her thought-provoking contributions to the global literary world. We start at the National Assembly, where government officials, including Prime Minister Han Duck-soo, were grilled by ruling and opposition lawmakers about the events leading up to the declaration of martial law on December 3rd. Our political correspondent Lee Si-hoo joins us on the phone with the latest. Now, Si-hoo, I hear some tough questions have been thrown at cabinet members at the Parliament.
Yes, Sunny, as we speak right now, the lawmakers are questioning key government officials, mainly the members of the cabinet known to have attended a meeting convened by President Yoon on December 3rd to discuss the imminent martial law declaration beforehand. These include Prime Minister Han Duck-soo and Finance Minister Choi Sang-mok. Now, Prime Minister Han said today that he was deeply sorry for not having prevented the declaration of martial law and that he will now work to stabilize the situation. Both the Prime Minister and Finance Minister Choi said they disagreed with the president's plan to declare martial law.
Right. Si-hoo, I also hear that the Parliament is seeking a separate probe into this brief martial law imposition.
That is correct. The National Assembly Speaker Woo Won-sik announced this morning that the Assembly is launching its own investigation into the government administration. Listen in.
Based on the rights of the National Assembly outlined by the Constitution, we will launch a parliamentary investigation into the unconstitutional emergency declaration of martial law on December 3rd. We must find out the truth about who ordered orders and how it happened.
Woo added that such is the responsibility of the Assembly and its job is to prevent any further risks to its operations.
Meanwhile, Si-hoo, what is the latest with regard to respective party efforts to deal with this latest political predicament?
Yes, Sunny. So the DP plans to reintroduce a second motion to impeach President Yoon this afternoon. Now, this is their second attempt following the one this past Saturday, and actually put it up to a vote this coming Saturday in front of the whole Assembly. The motion seeks to hold President Yoon accountable for violating the Constitution in declaring the martial law and for causing political turmoil across the country, with added allegations of Yoon's active involvement in the planning and execution of the decree. Again, this time the opposition will need at least 200 approvals from 300 lawmakers, which seems more likely as we see more shifts in the opinions among the ruling People Power Party lawmakers. This marks a change from last week when they decided as a party to refuse to vote on the impeachment motion. More PPP members are coming out to say they're considering impeaching President Yoon as a viable option. Now, lawmakers An Chol-soo, Kim Ye-ji, and Kim Sang-uk, the only three PPP members who cast their votes last week, and a couple more have hinted at their determination to vote for impeachment. Lawmaker Kim Sang-uk, who said that he voted against the motion last week, said that he, along with some additional PPP members, have vowed to vote in favor this Saturday. Meanwhile, the PPP leadership has shared a roadmap for early retirement of the president, which states plans for an early step down in February or March and an early presidential race 2 months afterward. A PPP task force formed to stabilize the current political turmoil says it is closely monitoring the situation. Sunny?
All right, Si-hoo, thank you for that coverage, and do keep us posted. That was our Lee Si-hoo reporting with the latest at the Parliament. And beyond the Parliament, a confrontation is taking place outside the presidential office in Yongsan between the police and the presidential security team as the former seeks access to the presidential compound. I have our Pei Eun-ji standing by live also on the line. Eun-ji, do fill us in.
Sure, Sunny. The probe into President Yoon and top police and military officers for the surprise martial law declaration last week has been escalating here in the country. A total of 18 investigators arrived at the presidential compound at around 11:45 a.m. this morning to gather materials related to President Yoon's brief imposition of martial law. But for more than 4 hours, the police have been in a standoff with the security office. And as of now, they have not been able to get inside the presidential office building. Yoon, whose residence is at a separate location, was reportedly believed to have not been at the presidential office when the investigators arrived. Police also raided the police headquarters as well as the offices of the Seoul Metropolitan Police and the National Assembly Police Guards on Wednesday. Separately, the Parliament's Justice Committee members and the committee chair called on the country's investigation office for high-ranking officials to arrest President Yoon. Its chief prosecutor did not deny the fact that his office can arrest Yoon if the conditions are met and said they will conduct an investigation. Take a listen.
We'll conduct an investigation and then review it.
Now, also on Wednesday, prosecutors began raiding the Army Special Warfare Command headquarters to investigate its role while the martial law was briefly in place last week. The command was allegedly instructed to drag lawmakers out of the National Assembly while the order was in place.
Right, some very grave allegations right there. Eunji, we've also heard that former Defense Minister Kim Yong-hyun attempted to take his life earlier today.
That's right, Sunny. Former Defense Minister Kim Yong-hyun was found by guards as he attempted suicide inside a detention center in eastern Seoul, where he's being held after being arrested on insurrection charges. The Justice Ministry's Chief of Correction Services, who revealed this information to the Parliament's Justice Committee, said Kim's life is not currently in danger. The ex-defense chief was arrested on Wednesday, a day after the Seoul Central District Court issued an arrest warrant for him for engaging in key activities while the martial law order was briefly in place last week. He was the first figure to be detained. That's all I have for now this hour, but I'll be back with more updates in our later newscast. Back to you, Sunny.
All right, NJ, thank you for that report. Now, a parliamentary hearing late last night saw an army commander sharing some disturbing demands allegedly made by the president on the night of Korea's brief martial law last week. Our defense correspondent Kim Bo-kyung has details.
Commanders and military leaders have begun to testify during investigations into President Yoon's botched martial law order. Lieutenant General Kwak, the suspended chief of the Army Special Warfare Command, said he was instructed to drag lawmakers out of the National Assembly while the order was in place. The comments were made during a Parliamentary Defense Committee meeting that was held until late Tuesday night.
The president called me directly on a secure phone. He told me the quorum doesn't appear to have been met yet. Break down the doors fast. Go in and drag out people inside.
Though he received the order from Yoon, commanders on the ground resisted, and Kwak also figured the resistance was the correct action. He also believed it was not right for troops to go in because of the chance of future criminal action and due to concerns of injuries if they forced their way in. Kwak said he ordered troops not to go any further before informing the ex-defense minister Kim Yong-hyun of his decision. Kwak also revealed that he had knowledge of some details of the martial law plan 2 days ahead of Yoon's declaration on December 3rd. He said he received orders from then Defense Minister Kim over a secure landline to secure 6 locations.
I was given the mission to secure 6 locations: the National Assembly, the National Election Commission, the Democratic Party headquarters, and Flower Research, an opinion polling company, on around December 1st.
After the order, Kwak says he only thought about what he would do if something actually happened and did not tell the subordinate brigade commanders as they could get into trouble. He only told them on the day they were actually being deployed. Meanwhile, there was also testimony from inside the Defense Counterintelligence Command. Brigade General Kim Dae-woo, chief of the Defense Counterintelligence Command's investigation unit, said Commander Yeo In-hyung ordered him to check if a key military bunker had space to detain people inside. The B-1 bunker, which is under the jurisdiction of the Army's Capital Defense Command, serves as the de facto wartime command center for Korea's military. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Across the border in North Korea, media in the regime covered the political chaos here in South Korea for the first time. Its central news agency on Wednesday claimed the president had wreaked havoc nationwide. The report touched upon the imposition of martial law, including the deployment of armed troops across Seoul, as well as the ultimate lifting of the mandate. The Nodong Shinmun also published an article with a picture of a public protest in front of the parliament calling for the president's impeachment. In other news, the U.S. Congress has pledged to maintain the current level of American troop presence here in South Korea. The pledge was included in the National Defense Authorization Act for the year 2025, which also calls on the U.S. Defense Secretary to bolster cooperation with Seoul, Tokyo, and other allies in the Indo-Pacific to sharpen America's edge over its strategic competition with China. The act further highlights continued extended deterrence for South Korea amid threats by North Korea. There are at present 28,500 American soldiers stationed in South Korea. Efforts to contain concerns over Korea's economic and financial stability amid its political predicament continue. Our Park Gun-woo covers the latest efforts to this end.
Authorities are doing all they can to deal with the unstable financial market following President Yoon's sudden imposition of martial law last week. The F4, the four key financial officials, including Finance Minister Choi Sang-mok, during an emergency economic meeting on Wednesday, said they're carefully monitoring the situation and preparing to respond to any fluctuations. Participants spoke about what they've been focusing on, including the Bank of Korea's repurchase agreements worth around $9.7 billion to supply short-term liquidity. The government also promised to continue these kinds of measures until the market is stabilized. Conference calls with major credit rating agencies and foreign investment banks are also planned during the next few days, with the aim of maintaining Korea's external credit rating. On Wednesday, during a meeting with Korea's Industry Ministry, the chairman of the American Chamber of Commerce in Korea, James Kim, said the current political situation will not affect the Korean economy and investments long-term. Members of the AmCham also said there are currently no major problems. Kim said although the Korean stock market and Korean won might have ups and downs in the short run, they are in the process of stabilizing. The benchmark Kospi ended Wednesday at 2,442, which saw a rise for 2 consecutive days. The tech-heavy Kosdaq also ended at 675 the same day, up by over 2% compared to the previous session. While saying that the stock market did fluctuate over the past week, the state-run think tank KDI said there was no significant volatility. The institute added negative effects of the current political turmoil are limited and will not last for long, asserting that it will not lead to an economic crisis. Park Gun-woo, Arirang News.
Late Tuesday afternoon in Sweden, Kang became the first Korean writer to win a Nobel Prize for a literary work. Our culture correspondent Song Yujin covers the historic event.
Dear Kang, on behalf of the Swedish Academy, it is my privilege to convey to you our warmest congratulations on the Nobel Prize in Literature 2024.
History was written at the Stockholm Concert Hall on Tuesday. The author, Kang, the first Korean and Asian female Nobel laureate in literature.
In Han's world, people are wounded, fragile, in some sense weak, and yet they possess just enough strength and just the right kind of strength to take another step or ask another question, request another document or interview another surviving witness.
After this 5-minute presentation speech, Han stepped forward to receive the Nobel Prize diploma and medal from Sweden's Carl Gustaf. Despite the crisp cold weather, many gathered outside the Stockholm Concert Hall to celebrate Han's historic win, South Korea's second Nobel Prize following former President Kim Dae-jung's Peace Prize in 2000.
We wanted to celebrate Kang, so we were very happy that she got the Nobel Prize. It's a great honor to come from the same country.
I'm the editor-in-chief of our school's newspaper, and we published a special edition immediately after Han Kang was named this year's Nobel Prize winner. I felt very proud and honored.
After the hour-long ceremony, the celebrations moved to Stockholm City Hall. About 1,300 distinguished guests, including the laureates and the Swedish royal family, attended the Nobel Prize banquet. At the end of the banquet, one laureate from each category delivered a speech of thanks. Han Kang gave her speech forth.
올해 노벨 문학상 수상자를 소개하게 되어 영광입니다.
In the darkest night, there is language that asks what we are made of, that insists on imagining into the first-person perspectives of the people and living beings that inhabit this planet. Language that connects us one another. Literature that deals in this language inevitably holds a kind of body heat. Just as inevitably, the work of reading and writing literature stands in opposition to all acts that destroy life. I would like to share the meaning of this award, which is for literature, with you.
So with just one day left in Nobel Week 2024, Han Kang is set to hold a press conference with the Korean media on Wednesday afternoon. She will then complete her Nobel Week journey by attending the Nobel Foundation's concluding reception on Thursday. 송유진, Arirang News, Stockholm.
Also at the Nobel Award ceremony, an organization for Japanese survivors of the 1945 U.S. atomic bombings was granted the Nobel Peace Prize this year for its fight against nuclear weapons. The three elderly co-chairs of the Nihon Hidankyo organization were presented with the award on Tuesday in Oslo, Norway. In their acceptance speech, much concern was shared about the violent conflicts in Ukraine and in the Middle East. Also among the attendees at this event were Chang Won-sul, the chairman of the Korean Atomic Bomb Victims Association and a survivor of the bombings himself, as well as Lee Tae-jae, whose father was a wartime Korean laborer in Japan at the time of the attacks. Employment here in Korea rebounds to the 100,000 range in November, but remains largely mixed. Our correspondent Lee Soo-jin has the latest data.
Employment growth in South Korea rose in November, but was sluggish overall as it remained uneven across sectors and age groups. Data released by Statistics Korea on Wednesday showed that there were 28.82 million people in employment last month, up 123,000 from the same period the previous year. The on-year job growth in November recovered to the 100,000 range after falling below the threshold in October, when it was the first time in 4 months that the country's job growth fell below the 100,000 mark. But overall employment continues to be stagnant due to the slowdown in employment in the construction, manufacturing, and the retail and wholesale sectors. Employment in construction fell by 96,000, the 7th straight month of decline. The manufacturing sector also saw a decrease of 95,000, the largest drop in 1 year and 7 months, while the retail and wholesale sector fell by nearly 90,000. The sectors seeing the most job growth were the healthcare and education service sectors, which both added more than 100,000 jobs.
Employment by industry increased in healthcare, social welfare, education and information and communications, but declined in construction, manufacturing and wholesale and retail trade compared to the same month last year.
Job growth was also uneven across age groups, highlighting the sharp contrast between the younger and older generations. The rise in employment was mainly driven by those aged 60 and above, with nearly 300,000 more people of that age in jobs compared to last year. Individuals in their 30s and 50s also saw job growth, but job figures for those aged 15 to 29 fell by 180,000, marking the 7th consecutive monthly on-year decline in the 100,000 range. The Finance Ministry on Wednesday acknowledged that the slowdown in employment was impacting specific sectors and age groups. It announced plans to actively monitor the employment situation through dedicated task forces and to include policies in next year's economic policy direction outline aimed at boosting competitiveness across all industrial sectors. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
The Asian Development Bank believes the South Korean economy will grow 2% next year. Now, this is according to the Finance Ministry here on this Wednesday, adding that the latest projection is down from September's 2.3%. This latest outlook reflects that of the International Monetary Fund. What's more, exports thus far this month have maintained their momentum with chips at the forefront. From December 1st to the 10th, exports amounted to over $17 billion, up more than 12% on year. Over in the Middle East, Israel has launched extensive air raids against naval bases in Syria as rebel forces there move to set up a new administration. Our Choi Soo-young reports.
The Israeli Navy launched attacks on the Al-Baida and Latakia ports on Tuesday, destroying the entire Syrian Navy's fleet of 15 vessels. On the same day, the Israel Defense Forces released a statement saying that Israeli jets had conducted over 350 strikes on military facilities, air bases, and other targets in several areas, including the capital Damascus, over the past 48 hours. The IDF stated that a significant number of Syria's strategic weapons, such as missiles and drones, were destroyed. Also, Israeli forces carried out airstrikes on 130 sites, including rocket launchers, in support of ground operations in the Golan Heights. Israel warned the rebels who toppled Assad not to follow in the footsteps of his regime. Israel and Syria have been in a ceasefire since 1974, but remain technically at war. The Iran-backed Assad regime had maintained close ties with the Lebanese-based militant group Hezbollah, which partly explains Israel's intense attacks following the fall of the regime. Israel has declared its intention to firmly establish sovereignty over the Golan Heights, which it has controlled since 1967, something the international community refuses to recognize. Meanwhile, Russia, which had been supporting the Assad regime, has moved to protect its naval and air bases in Syria following the regime's collapse. According to the Financial Times on Tuesday, Russia has relocated vessels and submarines from its base in the coastal city of Tartus to offshore positions within a 10-kilometer radius of the coast, seemingly as a precaution against potential attacks from Syrian rebel forces. Since 1971, the naval base at Tartus has been Russia's only overseas access to the Mediterranean. On Tuesday, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken stated that the future of Syria must be determined by the Syrian people. Blinken urged the formation of an inclusive government that aligns with international standards, affirming that the U.S. will fully support a future Syrian government. On the same day, Syrian rebel forces appointed 41-year-old Mohammed al-Bashir, a former member of Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, as the new interim Syrian Prime Minister. Choi Soo-young, Arirang News.
Morocco played host to this year's African Investment Forum, aimed at highlighting the continent's potential as a venue for investment. My colleague Shin Ha-young reports from its capital city.
Africa, the world's youngest and fastest growing continent, is attracting strong investor interest. This growing interest was further highlighted at the 2024 Africa Investment Forum, which took place throughout last week. 2,300 global investors, African business leaders, and government representatives from 83 countries gathered in Rabat, Morocco for the annual investment marketplace under the theme Leveraging Innovative Partnerships for Scale.
Our focus is on a triple mandate: to advance high-impact projects to bankability, raise capital, and accelerate the closure of deals. Africa, ladies and gentlemen, presents such a unique investment opportunity which cannot be ignored.
The three-day event also provided an opportunity to explore investments in Africa by emerging players, particularly from the Far East, including South Korea. Africa holds 40% of the world's reserves of critical minerals, such as cobalt and manganese, making Africa critical for the global energy transition.
A panelist from the Japan Bank for International Cooperation emphasized domestic processing as a key factor in natural resource development projects in Africa, noting that it requires technical assistance from various key partners.
Probably money is not the biggest problem for the development of the natural resources project in Africa. The structuring and working with other partners and gathering the expertise on various issues will be essential for materializing the tangible the project in Africa.
South Korea has also been strengthening ties with Africa, notably through the Korea-Africa Summit in June, where two sides agreed to launch a critical minerals dialogue aimed at sustainable development of the continent's resources. Catherine Kim, Director of Corporate Relations at the South African Chamber of Commerce in Korea, noted Korea's heavy reliance on manufacturing, making it highly vulnerable to supply chain issues, hinting at the country's commitment to diversify its supply chain. Kim emphasized Korea's technological potential, stressing that finding the right local partner should be the top priority for Korean companies expanding in Africa.
So for Africa, maybe they should be more understanding and a little bit more patient with Korean investors, as we are relatively new. We have lots of boxes to check. And for Korean investors, they should really learn more about the continent and all the financial institutions, like we've seen at the AIF, are doing to help mitigate the risk.
Africa is shifting away from the old industrialization approach when it comes to green minerals, aiming to industrialize and add value to its resources, offering new opportunities for global investors. 신하영, Arirang News, report.
It was sunny in inland areas today, but it snows in the other parts of the country. Both snow and rain have been falling on the East Coast, where it has been dry for a few days. This rain will relieve the dryness a bit. A heavy snow warning has been issued for the mountainous areas of Gangwon-do province. Up to 10 centimeters of snow is expected around northern mountainous areas. There could be more areas with heavy snow warnings, as 5 to 10 centimeters is expected until early tomorrow morning. Tomorrow, many areas will start at below 0 degrees, Seoul -2 degrees Celsius, Daejeon -3 degrees. Daily highs will move up to 8 in Daejeon and Gwangju, Busan 12 degrees. From Friday, the weather will get cold again and more snow will fall mainly on the west coast and Jeju Island. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Right, those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. Thank you for watching.